Dr. Lisa Martinez wiped the sweat from her forehead as she looked across the dusty surface of Kepler 442c. The small moon had no atmosphere worth breathing, so she and her team worked in bulky environmental suits. 3 months they had been digging here, and all they had found were rocks and more rocks. "Lisa, you need to see this," called Kevin Brown from the excavation pit. The archaeologist's voice crackled through the comm system. He sounded excited, which was unusual for Kevin. He was normally the calm one on the team. Lisa climbed down the metal ladder into the pit. The dig site stretched out before her like a maze of carefully marked squares. Each section had been measured and photographed dozens of times. Amanda White, their xenobiologist, knelt beside a section of exposed stone. Jake Thompson, their engineer, held a scanner that beeped steadily. "What do you have?" Lisa asked, kneeling beside them. Kevin pointed to a section of rock that looked different from the rest. Jake's scanner picked up something strange. "The rock here isn't rock at all." Jake held up his scanner. The small device showed readings that made Lisa's eyes widen. "The density is all wrong," he explained. "This should be granite, but it's reading like some kind of metal alloy. A really advanced one." Amanda brushed more dirt away from the surface. "Look at these patterns," she said. Under the dirt, faint lines appeared in the stone. They were too straight and regular to be natural. "These aren't random. Someone made these." Lisa felt her heart racing. They had come to this moon looking for evidence of ancient life. The Galactic Archaeological Council had approved their mission based on some unusual mineral readings from orbit. But finding actual artifacts would be the discovery of a lifetime. "How deep does it go?" she asked. Jake adjusted his scanner and pointed it downward. The device hummed for several seconds before displaying results. His face went pale inside his helmet. "Lisa, this thing goes down at least 500 meters. Maybe more." "That's impossible," Kevin said. "Nothing could be that big and stay hidden for so long." Amanda stood up and brushed dirt from her gloves. "Not impossible, just really, really old. If something was buried here millions of years ago, the surface would look completely natural by now." Lisa activated her comm unit and contacted their ship in orbit. "Base, this is Martinez. We need the heavy excavation equipment brought down. All of it." The voice of Captain Robert Chun came back immediately. "What's the situation down there, Lisa?" "We found something. Something big." Over the next week, the team worked around the clock to uncover more of the structure. The heavy excavation robots dug carefully, removing thousands of tons of soil and rock. With each passing day, the scope of their discovery became clearer and more amazing. The object was huge. It stretched for kilometers in every direction. The surface was smooth and metallic, covered in patterns that seemed to shift and change, depending on the angle of view. No one had ever seen anything like it before. "It's a ship," Jake said on the 7th day. He stood at the edge of the excavation, looking down at the exposed hull. "Has to be. Look at those lines. That's not a building or a monument. It's definitely a spacecraft." "But who built it?" Amanda asked. "And when?" Lisa ran her hand along the surface of the craft. The metal felt warm, even through her gloves. "The material composition is unlike anything in our databases. Kevin, how old do you think this is?" Kevin had been taking samples all week. His preliminary analysis showed results that seemed impossible. "Based on the soil layers and mineral deposits, I'd say this thing has been here for at least 3 million years, maybe longer." The news of their discovery spread quickly through the galaxy. Within days, ships from dozens of worlds arrived in orbit around Kepler 442c. The Galactic Archaeological Council sent their best experts. The Zephyrians brought their most advanced technology specialists. The Centaurians arrived with teams of Linguists and historians, Lisa, watched the ships arrive from the observation deck of their temporary base. Each new arrival meant more pressure, more politics, and more complications for her team. "Quite a crowd gathering," Amanda said, joining her at the window. "Too big a crowd," Lisa replied. This was supposed to be a quiet archaeological dig. The first of the alien delegations arrived 2 days later. Vex Towler, a tall Zephyrian with silver skin and bright yellow eyes, stepped off his transport with an air of authority. His species had been exploring space for over 20,000 years. They considered themselves the galaxy's premier experts on ancient technology. "Dr. Martinez," Vex Taylor said in his formal way of speaking, "the Zephyrian Science Council offers our assistance in this matter. We have vast experience with pre-contact artifacts." Before Lisa could respond, another ship landed nearby. Quinthara, a Centaurian scientist with blue-gray skin and multiple arms, approached with her own team. The Centaurians were known for their analytical minds and their vast libraries of historical data. "The Centauri Institute has already begun preliminary analysis from our orbital scans," Quinthara announced. "We believe this artifact predates any known civilization in this sector." More delegations arrived throughout the day. The Meridians sent Elder Morden, an ancient being whose species claimed to be the oldest in the galaxy. The Altarians brought Tech Prime Zarkith and a team of quantum technology experts. Even the mysterious Void Walkers sent representatives. By the end of the week, the small moon had become a bustling center of galactic attention. Temporary structures dotted the landscape around the dig site. Alien scientists worked alongside human researchers, though Lisa noticed that most of the aliens seemed to view her team as junior partners in the effort. "They think we're too young as a species to understand what we found," Kevin said quietly during a team meeting. "I heard Vex Tyler telling his people that humans have only been in space for 1,000 years. To him, we're children playing with adult toys," Jake nodded. "Zarkith keeps suggesting that we should let the Altarians take over the technical analysis. Says their equipment is more sophisticated than ours." Lisa felt frustrated, but tried not to show it. It was true that humanity was newer to galactic civilization than most other species. But that didn't mean they were incompetent. Let them think what they want. This is still our dig site. We found it. We're leading the investigation. Amanda looked concerned. But what if they're right? What if this technology is beyond our understanding? Maybe we should let the more experienced species take the lead. "No," Lisa said firmly. "We've come this far. We're going to see this through." The next morning, all the teams gathered around the exposed section of the craft. It was an impressive sight. Dozens of the galaxy's best scientists, representing species with thousands of years of experience, stood ready to unlock the secrets of the ancient vessel. Tech Prime Zarkith stepped forward with a complex device that hummed with energy. "We will begin with a standard technological interface protocol," he announced. "Our quantum resonance scanner should be able to establish communication with any advanced system." The device projected a beam of light onto the craft's surface. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then the beam simply stopped, as if the craft had absorbed it completely. "Interesting," Zarkith muttered. He adjusted several controls and tried again. The result was the same. Elder Morden approached with his own equipment. "Perhaps a linguistic approach would be more effective," he said in his slow, careful voice. "Our translation matrices can interpret any known form of communication." The Meridian devices scanned the craft's surface for over an hour. They found no response, no reaction, nothing at all. One by one, each species attempted to make contact with the ancient craft. The Centaurians tried historical analysis protocols. The Zephyrians used their most advanced sensors. The Void Walkers even attempted direct energy interface. Nothing worked. The craft remained completely silent, an unresponsive dot. As the day ended, Lisa looked at the frustrated faces around her. The galaxy's best minds had failed to make any progress at all. The ancient craft sat in its excavated pit, as mysterious as ever, keeping its secrets locked away from everyone who tried to reach it. The second week brought more alien ships and more frustrated scientists. Lisa watched from her tent as another Altarian transport landed near the dig site. The aliens were becoming increasingly impatient with their lack of progress. Tech Prime Zarketh had not given up on his technological approach. Every morning, he arrived at the craft with new equipment. His team had brought scanning devices that could analyze matter at the atomic level. They had computers that could process millions of calculations per second. None of it made any difference. The craft is clearly responding to our presence, Zarketh told the daily briefing. His metallic voice showed signs of strain. Our sensors detect energy fluctuations when we approach, but it refuses to acknowledge our communication attempts. Elder Morgon stroked his long gray beard as he considered the problem. The ancient Meridian had lived for over 3,000 years. He had seen technologies rise and fall across the galaxy. Perhaps we are thinking about this incorrectly, he said slowly. What if the craft is not ignoring us? What if it simply cannot understand us? Quainthara's 4 arms moved in complex patterns as she spoke. The Centaurian habit of gesture communication made her seem more agitated than usual. Our linguistic databases contain over 40 million language patterns from across galactic history. If this craft uses any known form of communication, we would have found it by now. Dr. Amanda White sat quietly in the corner, taking notes. The human delegation was small compared to the alien teams. Most of the other species had brought dozens of specialists. The humans had only their original 4-person archaeological team. What about biological interfaces? Amanda suggested. Some ancient technologies required living beings to activate them. Vextaler's yellow eyes flicked toward her dismissively. The Zephyrian bioscanners have already tested that possibility. The craft shows no response to biological presence. Any civilization advanced enough to build this would have moved beyond such primitive requirements. Lisa felt her cheeks burn with anger, but she kept quiet. The aliens had made it clear that they considered human suggestions to be well-meaning, but naive. After all, human space travel was barely 1,000 years old. Some of these species had been building starships when humans were still living in caves. The third week brought new attempts and new failures. The Void Walkers tried direct energy transfer. These beings existed partially outside normal space and could merge with most technologies. But when they approached the craft, they simply passed through it as if it were not there. Most unusual, whispered Kethver, the lead Void Walker. His translucent form flickered with confusion. The craft exists in normal space, but it does not exist in our realm. We cannot touch its essence. Jake Thompson watched the alien efforts with growing fascination. As an engineer, he understood technology better than most of his teammates. What he saw made no sense according to everything he knew about how machines worked. Look at the power readings, he told Kevin during their evening meal. Every time someone tries to interface with the craft, energy levels spike throughout the whole structure. It's like the thing is actively rejecting contact. Kevin pushed his food around his plate. The archaeologist had been quiet for days. Maybe it's designed to reject contact. Maybe whoever built it wanted to keep people out. But why? Jake asked. If you build something this big and complex, you don't bury it just to keep it secret. You build it to be used. Dr. Lisa Martinez had been thinking the same thing. She spent her evenings walking around the excavated sections of the craft, studying its surface patterns. The metal seemed to shift colors in the changing light. Sometimes she thought she could almost see shapes in the patterns, like pictures that formed and dissolved before she could focus on them. About the fourth week brought desperation. The various alien delegations had begun to argue among themselves. The Altarians claimed that the Zephyrians were using inferior scanning methods. The Zephyrians accused the Centaurians of withholding crucial data. The Meridians suggested that everyone was approaching the problem with too much haste. "This is becoming a political disaster," Captain Robert Chun told Lisa during their daily communication. "The Galactic Council is getting pressure from every member species. They all want access to whatever technology is inside that craft." Lisa could hear the strain in his voice. "Any suggestions from orbit?" "The Council is talking about declaring the site a restricted zone and bringing in their own team of experts. That would mean removing all current research teams." "Including us?" "Including us." That evening, the human team held an emergency meeting in Lisa's tent. Outside, they could hear the sounds of alien machinery working through the night. Several species had begun continuous scanning operations, hoping that constant pressure might eventually break through the craft's defenses. "We need to try something different," Amanda said. "Everything the aliens have attempted has been based on their own technologies and communication methods. But what if this craft doesn't work that way?" Jake nodded enthusiastically. "Amanda's right. Look at the failures. Every species is trying to contact the craft using their own methods. The Altarians use quantum interfaces because that's how their technology works. The Meridians use linguistic analysis because that's their specialty. But none of them are thinking outside their own experiences. So what do you suggest?" Kevin asked. "I think we should try direct physical contact," Lisa said quietly. "No technology, no complex interfaces. Just walk up and touch it." The others stared at her. After weeks of watching sophisticated alien technology fail, the suggestion seemed almost childish. "The aliens won't like that," Kevin warned. "They've already made it clear that they think we're too primitive to handle this discovery. If we suggest something that's simple, they'll laugh at us." "Let them laugh," Lisa replied. "What's the worst that could happen? It doesn't work, and we're in the same situation we're in now." The next morning, Lisa approached Vex Taylor with her suggestion. The Zephyrian's reaction was exactly what she had expected. "Dr. Martinez, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but physical contact is the most basic form of technological interface. If such a simple approach would work, we would have discovered it weeks ago." Tech Prime Zarketh was even more dismissive. "The craft's surface has been analyzed extensively. There are no manual controls, no physical interfaces of any kind. Direct contact would accomplish nothing except potentially damaging the artifact." Elder Mordoon was more polite, but equally doubtful. "Young human, your species' approach to problem-solving is admirable in its simplicity. However, a civilization capable of building this craft would have evolved far beyond the need for physical interaction." Even Quanthara, who had been relatively respectful of human input, shook her head. "Our scans show that the craft's surface is completely smooth at the molecular level. There are no contact points, no manual interfaces. Physical touch would be meaningless." The aliens returned to their sophisticated attempts at communication. The Void Walkers tried phasing into different dimensional frequencies. The Altarians brought in their most advanced artificial intelligence systems. The Centaurians created new linguistic models based on mathematical principles. By the end of the fourth week, the mood around the dig site had grown dark. Frustration was turning into anger. Some of the alien teams had begun working in secret, refusing to share their data with the others. The Galactic Council was demanding progress reports that no one could provide. Lisa stood at the edge of the excavation, looking down at the exposed craft. In the evening light, the metal surface seemed to glow with its own inner fire. The patterns flowed and shifted like living things. For a moment, She thought she saw something familiar in the designs, but it vanished before she could identify it. "Still think we should try touching it?" Kevin asked, joining her at the rim. "More than ever," Lisa replied. "Look at it, Kevin. Really look at it. Does this seem like technology that would respond to quantum interfaces and linguistic analysis?" Kevin studied the craft's surface. The flowing patterns did seem almost organic, like growth rather than construction. "It does look different from anything I've seen before. More alive somehow." "Exactly. What if the aliens are wrong? What if this craft doesn't work the way they think it should?" Jake and Amanda approached from behind. The engineer carried his personal scanner, a simple device compared to the alien equipment, but reliable for basic analysis. "I've been thinking about what you said," Jake told Lisa, "about trying direct contact. The more I watch these alien attempts fail, the more I think you might be right. They're all assuming this technology works like their technology. But what if it doesn't?" Amanda nodded. "In biology, we see this all the time. Organisms that look simple on the surface, but have incredibly complex internal structures. Maybe this craft is the same way. Simple interface, complex function." The four humans stood together in the growing darkness, looking down at the mysterious craft. Around them, alien machinery hummed and clicked as dozens of species continued their futile attempts to unlock its secrets. Tomorrow, Lisa decided, they would try the simplest approach of all. They would walk down into that pit and touch the craft with their own hands. The aliens might laugh, but the humans had nothing left to lose. Lisa woke up before dawn. She had barely slept, thinking about what they planned to do. Outside her tent, she could hear the constant hum of alien machinery. The other species never stopped working. They ran their scans and tests around the clock. Desperate to crack the mystery of the ancient craft, she dressed quickly and walked to the dig site. The excavated pit stretched out before her, lit by powerful floodlights. The craft's surface gleamed like liquid metal in the artificial light. Patterns flowed across its hull in slow, hypnotic waves. Kevin was already there, standing at the edge of the pit. "Couldn't sleep either?" he asked. "Too nervous," Lisa admitted. "What if we're wrong? What if this is just as pointless as everything else we've tried? Then we'll look foolish in front of the entire galaxy," Kevin said with a weak smile. "But at least we'll have tried." Jake and Amanda arrived a few minutes later. The engineer carried a small recording device, while the xenobiologist had her medical scanner. If something did happen when they touched the craft, they wanted to document it properly. "Ready for this?" Amanda asked. Lisa took a deep breath. "As ready as I'll ever be." They climbed down the metal ladder into the excavation pit. The craft loomed above them, its surface rising like a cliff face. Up close, the flowing patterns were even more mesmerizing. They seemed to respond to movement, shifting and changing as the humans walked past. Other scientists were already working in the pit. A team of Centaurians had set up their latest scanning array near the craft's surface. Several Zephyrians operated complex quantum analysis devices. They all looked up as the human team approached. Dr. Martinez called Quinthara. "You are here. Early today. Are you planning to assist with our morning scan sequence?" "Actually, we're planning to try something different," Lisa replied. Vex Taylor overheard and approached them. His yellow eyes showed curiosity mixed with skepticism. What new approach do the humans wish to attempt? Lisa felt her cheeks redden, but she kept her voice steady. "We want to try direct physical contact with the craft." The aliens exchanged glances. Some of them made sounds that Lisa recognized as their version of laughter. Tech Prime Zarkith emerged from behind one of his scanning devices. "Dr. Martinez, we have already explained why such an approach would be ineffective. The craft's surface shows no manual interfaces whatsoever. I understand your position, Lisa said, but we'd like to try anyway. It won't interfere with your work. Elder Mordon stroked his beard thoughtfully. If the humans wish to attempt this, I see no harm in allowing it. Perhaps they will observe something that our instruments have missed. Vex Tyler's expression showed clear doubt. Very well. But please be careful not to damage the artifact. This craft is too valuable to risk through primitive methods. Lisa bit back an angry response. Instead, she nodded politely and led her team toward the craft's surface. Behind them, she could hear the aliens discussing the situation in their various languages. Most of the comments sounded dismissive. The craft's hull rose smooth and featureless before them. Lisa could feel heat radiating from its surface, even through her environmental suit. The flowing patterns seemed to pulse faster as she approached, like a heartbeat speeding up with excitement. Here goes nothing, she whispered, and reached out to touch the craft. The moment her gloved hand made contact with the surface, everything changed. Light exploded across the craft's hull. Brilliant patterns raced outward from the point of contact, spreading like ripples on water. The entire structure began to hum with power. Deep vibrations traveled through the ground, making everyone in the pit stumble. The alien scientists stepped back in shock. Their instruments went wild, displaying readings that made no sense. Scanning devices that had shown nothing but inert metal now detected massive energy surges throughout the craft. Impossible, breathed Tech Prime Zarkith. His quantum analyzers were registering power levels that exceeded his equipment's ability to measure. Lisa felt tingling through her glove where she touched the craft. The metal was warm and seemed to pulse with life. The patterns flowing beneath her hand looked almost like writing, but in a language she had never seen before. Kevin, Jake, Amanda, she called without moving her hand. Come here, touch it. Her teammates moved forward carefully. Kevin placed his hand on the surface next to Lisa's. The light patterns flared brighter. Jake added his touch, and the humming grew louder. When Amanda pressed her palm against the craft, the entire section of hull began to glow. By the stars, whispered Elder Mordun. It is responding to them. The aliens crowded closer, their instruments recording frantically. But when Vex Taylor reached out to touch the craft himself, nothing happened. His silver hand made contact with the surface, but the patterns ignored him completely. Quinthara tried next, using all 4 of her arms to touch different sections of the hull. The craft remained unchanged. Tech Prime Zarkith pressed his metallic fingers against the surface with increasing force, but received no response at all. Why? Vex Taylor demanded. Why does it respond to humans but not to us? Before anyone could answer, a section of the craft's hull began to change. The solid metal flowed like liquid, forming an opening large enough for a person to walk through. Soft light spilled out from inside, revealing a corridor that stretched into the craft's interior. The aliens stared in stunned silence. After weeks of failed attempts to access the craft, the humans had opened it with a simple touch. Lisa looked at the opening, then back at her teammates. Should we go in? Together, Kevin said firmly. The 4 humans stepped through the opening. As soon as they crossed the threshold, the craft responded again. Lights came on throughout the corridor, illuminating walls covered in flowing script. The writing seemed to move and shift, rearranging itself as they watched. Behind them, beyond them, aliens tried to follow, but an invisible barrier blocked their path. They could see the humans walking down the corridor, but they could not enter themselves. This is unacceptable, Zarkith declared. He activated his most powerful cutting tools and directed them at the opening. The energy beams simply disappeared. When they hit the barrier, absorbed without effect, inside the craft, Lisa felt as if she were walking through a dream. The corridor walls were covered in symbols that seemed familiar, even though she was certain she had never seen them before. The script flowed and changed, but gradually began to stabilize into patterns she could almost understand. "Are you seeing this?" Amanda asked in wonder. "The writing is changing. It's like it's trying to communicate with us." Jake pointed his scanner at the walls. "Energy readings are off the charts. This whole place is alive with power." They walked deeper into the craft, following the lighted corridor. The passage opened into a vast chamber with a domed ceiling. In the center stood a pillar of crystal that pulsed with inner light. The walls were covered in displays that activated as the humans entered. "Welcome," said a voice. The 4 humans spun around, looking for the source of the sound. The voice had spoken in perfect English, with no accent or electronic distortion. It sounded completely natural, like a friend greeting them at their front door. "Who's there?" Lisa called out. "I am the archive keeper," the voice replied. "I have been waiting for you." Images began to appear on the chamber walls. They showed star maps, planetary systems, and technologies beyond anything the humans had ever imagined. But the most shocking images were the last ones to appear. They showed humans. Not modern humans, but people who looked exactly like them, wearing advanced suits and operating incredible machines. The images were clearly ancient, older than any civilization the galaxy had ever known. "I don't understand," Kevin said weakly. "Those people look just like us." "They are you," the archive keeper replied, "and you are them. You are the children returning home at last." Outside the craft, the alien scientists pressed against the invisible barrier, trying desperately to hear what was happening inside. Their instruments detected massive energy fluctuations and strange readings they could not interpret. But they could not penetrate the barrier that kept them from the humans. Vex Taylor struck the barrier with his fists in frustration. "This makes no sense. Humans are the youngest species in the galaxy. How can an ancient artifact respond only to them?" Elder Mordun watched the humans moving through the craft's interior, visible through the transparent barrier. His ancient eyes showed deep thought. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "we do not know as much about galactic history as we believed." Inside the craft, Lisa stared at the images flowing across the walls. She saw humans building vast cities among this, stars, terraforming dead worlds, and seeding the galaxy with life. The pictures told a story that seemed impossible, yet felt absolutely true. "You're saying that humans built this craft?" she asked. "Your ancestors built this craft," the archive keeper corrected. "They built many things. They prepared the galaxy for your return. And now, finally, you have come home." Lisa stared at the images flowing across the chamber walls. Her mind struggled to accept what she was seeing. The pictures showed humans doing impossible things. They were building cities that floated in space, creating new suns and transforming dead planets into garden worlds. "This can't be real," Kevin whispered. "Humans have only been in space for 1,000 years. We barely have the technology to travel between star systems." The archive keeper's voice filled the chamber with warmth and patience. "Time moves differently than you imagine. What you call ancient history was yesterday to your people. What you call the beginning was actually the return." More images appeared on the walls. These showed the galaxy as it looked millions of years ago. Empty worlds without life. Dead systems with no planets capable of supporting living things. And then the humans came. "Your ancestors were called the predecessors by later species," the archive keeper explained. "But they called themselves simply the gardeners. They saw the galaxy as a place that could bloom with life if someone planted the seeds." Amanda watched in fascination as the images showed humans terraforming world after world. They changed the atmosphere of planets, created oceans where none had existed, and carefully designed ecosystems that would support countless forms of life. But how is this possible? She asked. The other species in the galaxy are much older than us. The Meridians have been spacefaring for 50,000 years. The Zephyrians for 20,000. How could humans have been here first? Look more carefully at the images, the archive keeper suggested. The wall displays shifted to show close-up views of the terraforming process. Lisa gasped as she realized what she was seeing. The humans weren't just creating suitable environments for life. They were creating the life itself. You designed them, Jake said in amazement. The Zephyrians, the Centaurians, all of them. Humans created every intelligent species in the galaxy. Not created, the archive keeper corrected gently. Guided, encouraged, helped to grow. Your ancestors found worlds with primitive life and gave that life the chance to become something more. They planted the seeds of intelligence in countless species and then stepped back to let them develop naturally. The images showed the process in detail. Humans working with basic life forms, making careful genetic adjustments, creating the conditions that would allow intelligence to evolve. It was done with such skill and patience that the developing species never knew they had been helped. The Meridians evolved from simple ocean creatures on their homeworld, the archive keeper continued. Your ancestors gave them the genetic potential for long life and deep thought. The Zephyrians developed from pack hunters who learned cooperation. Humans enhanced their natural tendency to work together and gave them the ability to understand complex technology. Kevin sat down heavily on the chamber floor. Every species in the galaxy owes its existence to ancient humans. That's why we can communicate with them so easily. That's why we can work together when other species have trouble getting along. Exactly, the archive keeper said. You carry the template that was used to guide all galactic life. You are the common thread that connects every intelligence in this part of the universe. Outside the craft, the alien scientists pressed against the invisible barrier with growing frustration. They could see the humans moving around inside the chamber, clearly having some kind of conversation, but they could hear nothing. Their most sensitive recording equipment picked up only static. Vex Taylor had called for backup equipment from his ship in orbit. Massive quantum processors were being lowered into the excavation pit, but none of them could penetrate the barrier that kept the aliens out. There must be a way to break through, Tech Prime Zarkith insisted. No technology is completely impenetrable. Elder Morden watched the human team with thoughtful eyes. Perhaps the barrier is not meant to keep us out permanently. Perhaps it is simply ensuring that the right people receive the information first. The right people? Quaintara's 4 arms gestured angrily. What makes humans more qualified than us? Our civilizations have existed for thousands of years longer than theirs. Inside the craft, Amanda was asking the same question. If humans created all these species, why did they leave? Why let the galaxy forget about them? The archive keeper's response came with new images. These showed the ancient humans at the height of their power. They had spread across the entire galaxy, nurturing thousands of worlds and guiding the development of countless species. They had achieved everything that intelligent life could achieve. Your ancestors reached a point where they had to make a choice, the archive keeper explained. They could remain in the galaxy as permanent guardians, controlling and directing every aspect of life, or they could step aside and allow their children to grow up independently. They chose to leave, Lisa realized. They chose to transcend, the archive keeper corrected. They moved beyond physical existence, beyond the need for planets and ships and bodies. But before they left, they prepared for the possibility that their direct descendants might someday return to the galaxy. Jake looked around the chamber with new understanding. This craft is a test. You've been waiting to see if humans would develop enough to find it and activate it. This craft is a gift, the archive keeper said. and a responsibility. Your ancestors left you the tools and knowledge you would need to take care of the galaxy they created, but only if you prove yourselves worthy of that trust. The images on the walls changed again. Now they showed the current state of the galaxy, the various species living on their worlds, building their civilizations, exploring space. But they also showed the problems. Wars between species, planets stripped of resources, entire systems poisoned by industrial waste. The galaxy your ancestors created is in danger, the archive keeper said sadly. The species they guided have grown powerful, but they have not always grown wise. They need guidance again. They need someone to help them remember how to work together. Amanda felt the weight of what they were being told. You want humans to become the guardians of the galaxy, to take responsibility for all these species. I want humans to remember who they are, the archive keeper replied. You are not a young species that stumbled into galactic civilization by accident. You are the children of this galaxy's creators, returning home after a long journey. The question is whether you are ready to accept your inheritance. Kevin stood up slowly. What kind of inheritance are we talking about? The chamber began to change around them. New displays activated, showing technologies that made the most advanced alien science look primitive. Machines that could heal dying. Planets, devices that could create new forms of life. Tools that could reshape matter at the atomic level. Your ancestors left you everything you would need to repair the damage that has been done and guide the galaxy toward a better future. The archive keeper explained. But these tools come with a price. Once you accept them, you become responsible for every living thing in the galaxy. You become the guardians your ancestors were. Lisa looked at her teammates. All of them seemed overwhelmed by the magnitude of what they were learning. How do we know we're ready for this kind of responsibility? The fact that you ask that question suggests that you might be, the archive keeper said, with what sounded like approval. Your ancestors were wise. They knew that power without wisdom leads to tyranny. They built safeguards into their gifts. More displays activated around the chamber. These showed locations throughout the galaxy where other predecessor sites lay. Hidden, each one would respond only to humans, and each one contained different aspects of the ancient technology. There are 12 sites in total, the archive keeper explained. Each one will test you in different ways. Only when all 12 have been activated will you have access to the full inheritance your ancestors left behind. Jake studied the star. Maps showing the locations of the other sites. What happens if we're not ready? What if we fail the tests? Then the sites will remain sealed, and the galaxy will continue as it has, the archive keeper replied. Your ancestors were patient. They waited millions of years for you to return. They can wait longer if necessary. Outside the craft, the alien scientists had given up trying to break through the barrier. Instead, they watched and waited, recording everything they could observe. The implications of what they were witnessing were starting to sink in. If the craft only responds to humans, Elder Mordon said quietly, then perhaps we need to reconsider everything we thought we knew about galactic history. Vextaler's yellow eyes narrowed with anger and confusion. You're suggesting that humans, the youngest species in the galaxy, are somehow more important than civilizations that have existed for thousands of years. I'm suggesting, the Elder Meridian replied carefully, that perhaps humans are not as young as we believed. Inside the chamber, Lisa made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. We accept, she said simply. We'll take the tests. We'll try to prove ourselves worthy of this inheritance. The archive keeper's response filled the chamber with warmth. Then your real journey begins now. The moment Lisa accepted the inheritance, everything changed. The chamber filled with brilliant light as systems throughout the ancient craft awakened after millions of years of sleep. The walls became transparent, allowing the alien scientists outside to see what was happening for the first time. They watched in stunned silence as holographic displays surrounded the four humans. Star maps, technical diagrams, and streams of data flowed through the air like living things. The archive keeper's voice, now audible to everyone in the excavation pit, began to explain the truth about galactic history. Vex Taylor stumbled backward. As the revelation hit him, his proud Zephyrian civilization, with its 20,000 years of spacefaring history, was nothing compared to the ancient humans who had guided his species' evolution. His yellow eyes widened with shock and disbelief. "This cannot be true," he whispered. "The Zephyrian records go back to the dawn of our civilization. There is no mention of human guidance." Tech Prime Zarkith's metallic hands shook as he operated his recording devices. "My instruments confirm it. The energy signatures match predecessor technology. Everything we thought we knew about galactic history is wrong." Elder Mordon nodded slowly, his ancient features showing acceptance rather than shock. "I have lived for 3,000 years, he said quietly. "I have always wondered why the Meridians aged so slowly compared to other species. Now I understand. We were designed that way." Inside the chamber, Amanda watched the displays with growing amazement. The archive keeper was showing them the locations of the other predecessor sites scattered across the galaxy. Each one contained different technologies and different tests for humanity to pass. "The second site is on Proxima 7, the archive keeper explained. "It contains healing technologies that can restore dead worlds to life. The third site, hidden in the Vega system, holds the knowledge of genetic engineering that your ancestors used to guide evolution." Jake studied the technical diagrams floating around him. Even with his engineering background, the technology was far beyond anything he could understand. "How long will it take to learn all of this?" "Years," the archive keeper replied honestly. "Perhaps decades. Your ancestors built their inheritance to be discovered gradually. Each site you activate will teach you more about your responsibilities and give you new tools to help the galaxy." Kevin looked through the transparent walls at the alien scientists. Outside, their faces showed a mixture of fear, anger, and confusion. What about them? How do we tell the galaxy that everything they believed was wrong? Carefully, Lisa said. She could see the political disaster this revelation would cause. Every species would have to reconsider their place in the galaxy. Some would accept the truth gracefully, while others would fight against it. The archive keeper seemed to read her thoughts. Your ancestors faced the same challenge when they decided to leave. They knew that revealing the truth too quickly would cause chaos. That is why they created a gradual process. Each site you activate will provide more evidence and more understanding. Outside the craft, the alien delegations were already fracturing. Some species accepted the evidence of their instruments and began to discuss the implications. Others refused to believe what they were seeing. Quintara's four arms moved in rapid gestures as she spoke with her Centaurian colleagues. "The genetic analysis is conclusive. The base patterns in our DNA match human genetic structures. We are related to them in ways we never imagined." But not everyone was ready to accept the truth. A group of Altarian scientists, led by Tech Prime Zarkith, began packing their equipment with angry efficiency. "This is clearly some kind of elaborate hoax," Zarkith declared. "Perhaps the humans discovered this ancient craft and programmed it to support their claims. We will not be deceived by such obvious manipulation." Elder Mordun approached the departing Altarians. "Brother Zarkith, your own instruments confirmed the age and origin of this technology. How can you dismiss such clear evidence?" "Evidence can be falsified," Zarkith replied coldly. "The Altarian Empire will not bow to human claims of superiority based on a single ancient artifact." The political tensions that Lisa had feared were already beginning. As news of the discovery spread across the galaxy, Different species would react in different ways. Some would embrace the truth, while others would see it as a threat to their own power and influence. Inside the craft, the archive keeper continued the briefing. Your first task will be to activate the healing site on Proxima 7, the planet. It was damaged by industrial mining centuries ago. Your success in restoring it will demonstrate your commitment to protecting life rather than exploiting it. Amanda felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. What if we make mistakes? What if we're not wise enough to use these technologies properly? Your ancestors made mistakes too, the archive keeper replied gently. Wisdom comes from learning, not from being perfect. The sites will guide you and teach you. You will not be alone in this responsibility. Over the following weeks, the excavation site became the center of galactic attention. Ships arrived daily, carrying representatives from every major species. Some came to offer support and cooperation. Others came to challenge human claims or demand equal access to predecessor technology. Lisa found herself thrust into the role of humanity's spokesperson, a position she had never wanted or trained for. She spent her days in meetings with alien ambassadors, trying to explain what humanity had learned and what they planned to do with their inheritance. The Meridians, led by Elder Mordoon, were among the first to offer formal support. We have always believed that wisdom should guide the use of power, the ancient being told Lisa during one of their meetings. If humans carry the legacy of the predecessors, then perhaps they can help the galaxy find wisdom again. The Void Walkers were more mysterious in their response. When they finally spoke, their representative delivered a simple message. We have touched the edges of transcendence ourselves. We recognize the signature of those who have gone beyond. The humans speak truth, but not all reactions were positive. The Altarian Empire officially rejected the revelation and withdrew from all cooperative galactic projects. Several smaller species followed their lead, claiming that human dominance would destroy the balance of power that had kept the galaxy relatively peaceful. The Zephyrians were divided. Vextyler struggled with accepting that his proud species owed its existence to human guidance, but the scientific evidence was overwhelming. After weeks of internal debate, the Zephyrian Council agreed to cautious cooperation with human exploration of predecessor sites. Jake spent his time studying the technical information the archive keeper provided. The more he learned, the more amazed he became. This technology could solve every major problem the galaxy faces, he told Lisa excitedly. Energy shortages, planetary pollution, resource depletion, even extending lifespans for species that age quickly. Which is exactly why we have to be careful with it, Lisa replied. Power like this could also be used to control or dominate other species. We have to prove that we're worthy of the trust our ancestors placed in us. The team prepared for their journey to Proxima 7, the first test site. As they loaded their ship with supplies and equipment, Lisa looked back at the ancient craft. That had changed everything. The archive keeper had promised to remain active, available to answer questions and provide guidance as humanity began to explore their inheritance. Captain Robert Chun met them at the landing pad. The Galactic Council has officially recognized human authority over predecessor sites, he reported. But they're also demanding regular reports on everything you discover. And there are protests on a dozen worlds from species that refuse to accept the revelation. Lisa nodded. She had expected political complications. What about the other sites? Are they showing any activity? 3 of them have begun responding to human presence, Chun replied. Teams are being assembled to investigate each one. The galaxy is watching everything we do very carefully. As their ship lifted off from Kepler 442c, Lisa looked down at the excavation site one last time. Alien scientists were still working around the clock, trying to understand the technology that had responded only to humans. The political implications of their discovery would ripple through galactic civilization for generations to come. Amanda joined her at the observation window. "Do you think we're really ready for this responsibility?" Lisa considered the question carefully. "I don't know if anyone could ever be completely ready for something this big. But our ancestors believed we could handle it eventually. They waited millions of years for us to grow up and come home. I think we owe it to them and to the galaxy to try our best." The ship entered hyperspace, carrying humanity toward their first test as the inheritors of galactic civilization. Behind them, the ancient craft continued to pulse with patient light, a beacon calling humanity home to a destiny they were only beginning to understand.